Good evening, Jeopardy fans, and welcome to Hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel presented by the JeopardyFan.com. Once again, I am Andy Saunders, and I'll be moderating tonight's discussion. And we've got quite a nice panel for you this evening. Let's get straight into the introductions. Normally, I do my introductions by when you first appeared on the show. However, going to do things a little bit differently tonight because I always also introduce returning panelists first. And we actually have made some hashtag Jeopardy Live panel history here in that we've had someone who was on and gave a fan before they were actually on the show as a contestant. So welcome back to hashtag Jeopardy Live panel, Brandon Randall, and congratulations on your victories.
Thanks. It's great to be back.
And our second panelist tonight, welcome to hashtag Jeopardy Live panel, and congratulations on your own victories, Lisa Evans.
Thanks so much for having me up here tonight.
And so if you've got any questions for the panel, you can use the hashtag Jeopardy Live panel on Twitter. You can also use our YouTube chat. And if I see good questions or comments on either of those spots, I will certainly read them out. I think my first question is more for Brandon because you would have been there that week. This one actually is from Amy Young. She was on the show a few months ago, but obviously you guys taped back, late February, early March, and so the question is, she kind of wants to know what it was like getting into this Canada Day spirit in what we presume was late February, early March.
Yeah, it was March 8th, the day that they taped, actually. And I was in the audience watching that last game where Alex came out with the jersey for Canada Day. So we were all kind of surprised to see him come out, not in his suit and tie and everything. And I was kind of surprised because they just announced that he got appointed to the Order of Canada. So he must have known then that, because I think he mentioned it in the show intro somehow.
I think it was a little bit different, the two things. The Order of Canada was a surprise, but he was also a Canada 150 ambassador.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
So, it must have been a surprise. And I'll actually get back to you on sticking around in the audience for the afternoon games once we get a little bit later on in the show. My next question, kind of for both of you, Lisa, mostly because certainly Lisa, I would say when you won your first game, you certainly had what I would consider to be one of the most shocked reactions I've seen in a very long time for somebody becoming Jeopardy champion. So my question for you is, what was going through your mind when Alex announced that you were Jeopardy champion, and maybe the minute or so, the 2 minutes or so, I guess, from the point where they come back from commercial and Alex is like, here's the category, here's the clue. What's going through your head at that point up until Alex is like, Lisa, you're the Jeopardy champion?
Well, I made a really stunning comeback. I had been down negative $800, and I was up, I think, around 21,000 going into Final Jeopardy. And I knew the answer. The question. The answer involved somebody in the early 1900s setting up I think it was the Nonviolent Resistors Soccer Club, down who was Gandhi, because I knew it had to be Gandhi. Really wagered as much as it would take to beat the then current champion by $1.
Yep.
And he underbet by about $2,000, and it sort of poured over me. All I could think was one, which was a dream I'd had since I was 8 years old. And the second thing was, now I can pay off my credit cards. This sense of relief and shock, because my opponent was he was, I believe, a 3-time Jeopardy champion at that point, and I would dare to believe that it was true. And I walked out of the studio chuckling to myself. I laughed all through lunch, and then I had to get myself together for the game after lunch. So a roller coaster ride.
So how much did that lunch break actually help? Because I mean, watching how shocked you were, I would have been surprised to have seen you get recollected in the 15 minutes you have between games, other than having that longer lunch break.
It was a slightly longer lunch break, but I think it was. I had been spending the previous month thinking, just keep focused, keep your eyes on the prize. Due to work and some research for a project that I was doing, I didn't have a chance to study until I actually got on the plane. And then I basically read the online version of the World Almanac on my e-reader. So I went in basically cold, thinking if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't happen, it does not happen. First game, and then I went to lunch there in the green room when I was changing my clothes, and I was just thinking, okay, prove that this was not a fluke. And I went in there, and some of those categories were absolutely tailor-made for me.
So you could almost say they were in your wheelhouse then.
Basically, yes. I'm in a medieval reenactment group, and the one about the young popes, I mean, I knew every single one of those. And then there was one that turned out to be about horror fiction, and I've been a science fiction and fantasy fan since I was a child. Those were easy. And then, of course, I got I was the only person to get the final Jeopardy question correct.
Mm-hmm.
It surprises me. So.
I'm going to ask Brandon a similar question. What was going through your head? You were certainly in a much different scenario than Lisa was in your first game. You were in a distant third behind the two tied contestants. So what's going through your head as Alex comes back from commercial and that 2 minutes between the revealing of the clue and Alex is like, Brandon, you're champion.
Yeah. I was just kind of, I was happy with whatever happened. I was like, okay, I'm really behind. There's a good chance that I won't win. This has been really fun. And then, like seeing the other responses come up and everything, and I saw that they were incorrect, I was just like, I couldn't really process it at the moment. So I probably felt more surprised than I looked. I don't think they had like when I look back on it, I think I mouthed wow to the camera afterwards. You can see me mouth wow to the camera because I'm just shaking my head and going like, how did I win this game? So yeah, it was just really happened really fast, and it was really surprising to me, I think, that it actually happened.
Now, how you only had obviously 15 minutes between your games. Mm-hmm. So how was it for you to regroup after, the tape stops, you're done your post-game interview, you're done standing up on stage and they drag you off. And so what's that feeling like? What was that feeling like for you?
I just kind of rolled with everything. Everyone, all of the crew, they're just like, good job, champ. Like, go back and get changed, champ. And they just call you champ the whole time. And I was thinking like, I'm the champ.
Yeah, they do.
Wow. Yeah. So I just kind of rolled with it. I was like, okay, time to change my clothes. Then I go out. They touch up your makeup and refit your mic and everything, and I was like, okay, just time to go out and play some more Jeopardy, I guess. So I just, yeah, rolled a bunch.
They really do check your makeup every few minutes. I mean, they were constantly patting, patting my face down between, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, my next question, a little bit with regards to the signaling device. I know, Lisa, you mentioned in your first game that you were at minus 800 at one point, yes. And then I feel like I noticed this at when it happened, but it was like you had from over the last basically from Lincoln quotes through to the end of that first game, it seemed like you had discovered the magic of the signaling device, and then that carried through to your next two games.
that's basically what happened. One of the stage managers came up to me after the first break, and he told me, wait until Alex stops talking. And I got the feeling that he was telling other people who were jumping the gun to do the same thing. And some of us were able to get it, and some of us weren't. And me, the Eddie Tamanis had won, and he's blind.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, if he just relies on listening, I can do that too. And suddenly it all just came together. And I think that the Lincoln category, it was the thing that I needed to switch me over from, I think I can do this too. Yeah, I got this.
And then, of course, you ran roughshod over the buzzer the next 2.5 games. And certainly, yeah, definitely, you were you were definitely in the zone, especially when it came to waiting for Alex to stop talking and just that point. And now
the best part was.
Sorry, go ahead. Please continue.
No, I was going to say my company was having a conference during the time that my that my episodes were broadcast, and our guests kept coming in the next morning and saying, "Wow, I saw you on Jeopardy last night. You were terrific." So he was really pleased. They're saying, "Hey, our office manager is a Jeopardy champion." So
nice. Yeah, that's always good for a company to be able to to brag about their employees that way. Now, Brandon, you certainly had, I would say, you weren't quite as successful as Lisa on the signaling device. That being said, not many people, most of you aren't as successful as Lisa on the signaling device. So, what were you getting now? Were you getting more tired as the games went on?
I didn't. I mean, I probably was, but I don't think that I felt it like significantly. I'm used to being on my feet a little bit, I guess. I've singing choir concerts and things like that, so it wasn't too weird being on my feet that long, and you get breaks in between, to change it and everything. So I felt like kind of the rush of the game just helped me along. But afterwards, when things wore down, I was like, wow, that was really tiring. Really exhausting. So yeah, you don't really feel it too much. At least I didn't feel it too much, but it probably was there.
What about you, Lisa?
I had read some advice from a woman who was a champion, and she said that she made sure she got that we'd lost because her blood sugar had crashed after 2 games. Kept her advice in mind, and I made sure to get up early and balance breakfast and get some extra sleep the night before. So really exhilarated than anything else. Also, though, I was on East Coast time too, and I think that definitely started to help me, at least in the first couple of games. Tired afterwards.
Okay, yeah, that's it's interesting what the time zone difference can do to people, because I know for some people that's not been great, and for others it certainly it's been really good. So you spoke about the lunch break a little bit earlier in your in the interview here, Lisa. So I don't think, Brandon, you can really answer this question, because I don't think because unfortunately you lost just before the lunch break. But I asked this question of everyone I can here on Jeopardy Live Panel, and that is, you got the opportunity to avail yourself of some food on Sony's dime at the commissary, Lisa. So my question for you is, what did you have for lunch, if you remember?
I had a salad, like a tossed salad with some grilled chicken on it, and I think I had a bottle of water because I didn't want to be dry when I came back, and I think I had a yogurt. I also think I may have splurged and gotten a cookie. They do give you a voucher if you stay for lunch, and even if you if you're in the first game or two and you lose and you elect to stay for lunch, I believe they still do give you a voucher in the commissary. I most remember isn't even the food; it's that they have this nice little green lawn outside the commissary, and I'm pretty sure it's AstroTurf. California water restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
Not what I was expecting, but I was just looking around and soaking it all in.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So Brandon, being that you did stick around, can you speak to that at all?
They didn't say anything about that. They just had us all leave the studio, and then I went back in with the group and everything. So they didn't give me any lunch from
Did you get to have a
the
tour?
commissary. Or what?
I ended up going to the gift shop at the end of the day after my final game, and I bought a few souvenirs.
Nice.
And then the next day I went around Los Angeles with a friend of mine who lived in Torrance. So,
what sort of stuff did you end up doing on that tour?
We ended up going to the fashion district, and I like to sew, and I'm in a reenactment group, so I picked up some fabric, and then we went to a museum and we saw an exhibit of Hollywood costumes, recent films. So that was a lot of fun.
Nice. What else did you do when you were out in the Culver City area, Brandon?
It was actually a really quick trip. I flew in the night before and got to the hotel finally, probably around pretty late at night. I can't remember exactly what time. And then we actually left. My family came to watch. They drove in from Arizona, took me to the airport to fly back, and they went and drove back. But we went to In-N-Out for dinner afterwards.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
But I've been to California a lot of times. So I was like, well, I can't, go too long because of school and everything. So I might as well just, make it a quick trip. And I've seen lots of California before, so I'm good for now.
Were your professors understanding?
Yeah, I actually had to get out of a choir performance for
Oh my.
and my choir professor. He was actually substituting for someone for the semester because she was on her sabbatical. He was really excited about it. He's like, "Yeah, you have to go do that." Like, I'm excited to watch you and everything. So that was good. And then I had missed a few other classes, but I didn't really tell the professors. I just skipped the class for the day.
I think I would have been. I think I would have told the professors, being like, "Look, I'm really sorry I can't make your class this week. I'm going to be on Jeopardy."
Yeah. I can't remember what classes I missed, but it was only like one or two. So I was just like, well, they won't notice me go.
So I know Lisa mentioned about the e-reader with the World Almanac on the flight. Did you get much of a chance to study either, Brandon?
Not too much. Like, I'm really bad at studying in general. As a college student, that's probably a bad skill to have, but I'm just not good at just sitting down and studying. So I just kept doing what I was already doing. I look on Wikipedia a lot. I have a lot of Wikipedia chains that I think of something to look up there, and then I click on something else, and then I keep looking up just random things. I reviewed like a few things, probably like state capitals. I think I looked at those a bit, and presidents. I looked at a little bit of that. But yeah, I just tried to keep doing what I was already doing. I made sure to watch the show a lot so I could practice and just make sure I was in the rhythm of playing and everything.
So, I know, Lisa, you mentioned credit card, being able to pay that off after your first game. And I know, Brandon, that you're a student and probably have student loans. And of course, in your case, the Church of Latter-day Saints is getting its 10%. But do you have any other? Do you both have any other plans for your winnings?
Yeah, I definitely want to get a car. I haven't had a car yet. I'm 25 now. I haven't had a car yet, so that's probably one of the first things on my list. Because it'd be great just to be able to get around better. It's a college town, so it's not that hard to get around, but it'd be really nice. And I want to go on. There's a few trips I have in mind. Going back to Peru. That's where I serve my mission. I really want to go back there probably since the day I left. So that's pretty high on my list. Going back to England, I went on a study abroad to London a couple of months ago. So yeah, just like traveling, and I want to make sure to save a lot of it too because it's important to do that, I think.
Mm-hmm. And you, Lisa?
Well, let's see, paying off the credit cards, which includes some medical debt from a minor operation I had last year. I want to take a trip to Germany, partly for tourism and partly for research. I did mention on one of my games that I research medieval textiles, particularly quilts and related textiles. And there's a piece of 14th century applique I'd like to see in Germany.
Oh, nice.
I'm also, do a few things around the house. I'm either going to have my current car fixed up, or more likely, I'm going to use some money as the down payment on a new car. Yes.
I wonder how many Jeopardy champions buy. I know back in the day, a couple decades ago, if you won 5, they'd give you a car. But I wonder how many people use their winning. How many champions use their winnings on a car. I'm not sure any you guys would be able to answer that. I was just kind of musing there, but
what is a very good question.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure that will come out. I'm sure somebody will let people will stories will start coming out of the woodwork over the next week out of people who listen either now or later on as they because some people listen a little bit later. But so my next question for you guys, it's something I ask from time to time here on the hashtag Jeopardy Live panel. About a year ago, I had someone on who posed this in kind of the open session. So my question for you guys, everyone I would say 90%, at least 90% of people who've been on Jeopardy kind of are big fans of the show and watch it a lot or have watched it a lot at some point. So how did you guys become Jeopardy fans way back when you started I know, Lisa, you mentioned you've had the dream since you were 8 years old to be a champion. Mm-hmm. So how did you guys become Jeopardy fans?
Well, in my case, my parents watched it during the Art Fleming days.
Oh, wow.
Hooked then. Yeah, the Art Fleming day. Which made it even funnier when about 6 of my friends sent me copies of the Weird Al Yankovic video about I Lost on Jeopardy. Art Fleming on it. But, mm-hmm. My mother and I used to play the home game. We watched it. And, when Alex Trebek had started up the revival, I just continued to watch it. It just seemed like the natural thing to do. I was delighted.
So how many times have you tried out for the show, Lisa?
That was my second attempt. I first tried out in 2013. I got as far as the online, I did the online test. I got as far as an in-person audition, and then I didn't hear from them again. So I decided to try again. I tried out in 2015, person audition. 18 months to the day after the in-person audition, said we would like you to come out to California. Literally the last day that I was eligible for this season. Couldn't believe it.
Well, sometimes sometimes they wait. So that's all I can say. They and I've heard stories that people have, been called even after the 18 months.
Mine was close. It was really close. So, but I was so stunned. I was so stunned. I pretty much given up. I figured I was going to have to take the online test again.
And then, so I'm just curious, which contestant coordinator gave you the call?
Laurie.
Laurie
called me.
Brandon, I'll ask you the same thing. I'm sure you remember the call.
Ryan, actually, I didn't know who he was exactly, but he's introduced himself in the phone message. I'm Ryan from Jeopardy, and so I was like, okay. Yeah, but I hadn't seen him in auditions or anything, so I was like, oh, that's a new one.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so Yeah, Brandon, you didn't get a chance to answer the how did you become a Jeopardy fan?
So we had a floppy disk of a Jeopardy game when we had to sell on a different floppy disk actually. That's how long ago it was. A Jeopardy computer game, and I don't remember exactly why I wanted to play it. Maybe I already watched before then. I don't remember, but I really loved playing that game. It was from the '90s, so it was really cheesy, but you got to answer all the questions and everything. And then I kind of watched off and on a little bit when I was really young, but then Ken Jennings came on the show, and I think that's when I really started getting into it. And then a few years after that, I made sure to watch every day, and I just kept thinking like I could do this someday, maybe. Like I know some of the questions, I like trivia, so yeah, it was just kind of an off and on thing for a while, and then I really got into it and really started auditioning and started taking the tests and everything, and it just kept growing, I guess.
Nice. So, with regards to your various interviews with Alex, did he talk about what you thought he'd talk about in your contestant interviews?
My first interview, actually, Karina, I talked about this on the blog. Karina was really surprised that he picked the one that he did, the one about hugging a cow. And I thought I thought he'd go for the guinea pig one first too. That's what she thought he was going to go for. She had like starred in the card that for him to look at first, but he really wanted to know why I wanted to hug a cow, I guess. So it was a little surprising. That's an interesting one too, but I didn't think he'd go for that first.
And you, Lisa?
Oh, I knew that the first game, I knew he was going to ask me about the fact that I inherited a photograph that my father took of Adolf Hitler's bathtub. My dad was, I just figured that was so unusual that he was just going to ask, why do you own this? And the answer is, my father was a soldier in World War II, and evidently they trotted all the soldiers through what was left of Hitler's vacation home, and Dad had his camera. He snapped a picture of it, and I found it a few years ago when I was going through his things, and I just went, and I looked and I flipped it over in the back, and it was Dad's handwriting, and it said Hitler's bathtub. And I just thought, wow, what a conversation piece. I had no idea that it was going to end up on national TV. I'm actually looking for a museum to donate it to at some point. So, and it may be the only one that exists from after the war. So.
I'd almost say it might be the only one that exists from even during the war, but
it's entirely possible. Yeah, it's not something that you would think people would take pictures of, but I never got a chance to ask my father when he was alive. So, but
do you remember what Alex talked to you about post game?
He was complimenting me on my comeback the first game. And then I remember he said through the next two games, she's really good and she's tough. And he was remember all that much of the between game conversation. I was just the first time I was just so, and the second time I was thinking, okay, this is great. Let's go change. I started to settle into the groove. So
now, you, Brandon.
I remember the first one, and that he commented like, you started off really strong, and then it seemed like you just let the other two have a turn and go. And that's pretty much all I remember. The other two chats, I think we probably talked about the final Jeopardies a little bit. The final clues, but I don't remember too much. I just remember it was fun to talk to him, I guess. It wasn't really too boring, but it was boring enough, I guess, that I don't remember what I talked about. Yeah, but he was really nice. He complimented us and everything, and it was really cool.
So, speaking of your last final Jeopardy a little bit, both of you obviously did not get it correct in your respective defeats. So, can you speak a little bit about your thought process on that? on the final clue you got to face on the show?
Yeah. I talked about this on the blog that I had read that fact, or that he used fake names like a few months before, but I didn't remember that at all. I just saw it on Wikipedia or something. So I don't know why Jimmy Hoffa was the first name that came to mind. I was like, I have to write something down. I just thought Jimmy Hoffa, whoever he is exactly. I can remember he was the Teamsters Union president, and I was like, well, maybe he built something, or I don't know. So Walt Disney just never came to mind at all. And it's funny because I'm a huge Disney fan. I'd read that fact before. I haven't been to Disney World though, so maybe that might have helped.
Though the guy who said Trump got a little bit of ribbing as well, unfortunately. So Lisa, what was your thought process on your last Final Jeopardy?
Well, that's really kind of an embarrassing one because, of course, the question that I got wrong was, the answer was, the question was, what is the bell jar?
Mm-hmm.
And I honestly thought, first of all, that the bell jar was written in the 1950s, not the 1960s, because the category was 1960s novels, and I thought that the book was written in like 59. And the thing that's embarrassing is I went to Smith, and so did Sylvia Plath.
Oh.
And my friends are going to give me this for the rest of my life.
Well, I would say you have about 64,000 reasons why, or at least ways to reply.
Basically, yes. And it is going to go in my college alumni quarterly. I mean, I don't know if this was on the questionnaire that Brandon filled out as well, but they ask you, what newspapers do you want to have contacted? So I gave them the 2 local newspapers, and I also put down my college alumni quarterly. About, is there an alumni magazine? So I'm assuming that they're going to get in touch with me before the next magazine or put something in. So as it was, I was contacted by both the local newspapers, one of the local TV stations, and 2 local radio hosts called me at 6:30 on Monday morning to congratulate me on my successful run on Jeopardy. Let me listen to that morning drive time show, but they were really nice. So
that might be an interesting point of advice for people who win on Jeopardy, is that maybe you should be prepared for radio personalities to call you randomly at early morning.
Yeah. And it's still happening. I got home from work today, and there was a gift certificate good for a free skate or game of laser tag at a local roller rink. So, and I don't skate very well, so
what prompted that?
Well, I was not expecting at all.
Yeah. Was that like, what was it? Did they just randomly send it to you? Hey, she won Jeopardy, we're going to give her this extra thing.
That's what it seems to be. There was a copy of one of the clippings saying, Lisa Evans wins on Jeopardy. And there was the gift certificate. Was not expecting that at all.
Just a piece of advice, just in case. You may want to let the show know, just in case. I can't, because I know often, because I know in the past, I know that there have been people who have been offered various things. I know my friend Shay was on a couple of years ago, and there was an issue with, or there was a makeup category, and then the company sent him a bunch of makeup, and he had to be like, he had to ask to see what he could accept and what he couldn't. So you may want to check with the show on that one.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, actually, I will. They probably won't care about a local roller rink, but I will get in touch with them and ask them about it.
Yeah, just in case.
Oh yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm not planning to use it myself because I'm an absolutely terrible roller skater. But
so, Brandon, I know there aren't many people who actually stick around and actually, after they've lost in the morning, go back in and watch the afternoon. What were they? did you just say, "Hey, we want to come in and actually watch the other two games," and were they accommodating, or did you just randomly show up and be like, "Hey, we're back"?
So like I stayed there because I lost the game right before the break, and they take everyone out of the studio. But then you go, they have the line to get into the next taping session, and you just tell them, like I'm a contestant. These are my guests and everything, and so they give you wristbands. I think they gave us wristbands, and then they just had us go in the front of the line. So they're pretty accommodating about it. At first, I wasn't sure what to do.
Brandon, I think your video cut out there briefly. That's too bad. We're having some technical difficulties here on hashtag Jeopardy Live Panel. I hope it's not me, and it's Lisa, are you still with us?
Yes. Yes,
so
I can hear you just fine.
So yeah, just we're having some technical issues here. That's one thing that sometimes happens when we go live. When Brandon's stuff comes back, I'll get him to ask a little. I'll elaborate on that answer a little bit. But Lisa, question for you: how different is it watching Jeopardy now that you've been a contestant and been to the studio, taped an episode, that sort of thing?
It's very interesting because now I know how big the set is. I know how cold the set is in the morning before the lights warm everything up. And now I know why it's so quiet, because they have sort of a half wall and the studio audience is behind that, and you really can't see them. You can see your friends and family, but you how to talk to you, signal to you, hug you, anything else. And then you've got this half wall. The rest of the contestants behind it, and they keep the set very quiet. Interesting. And also now I know that during the commercial breaks, Alex will be recording dialogue if he flubs the pronunciation on an answer or something like that. And I also know that they're running up to all the contestants with makeup brushes and little sips of water, and basically trying to make sure that you're comfortable. Interesting, seeing it from both sides.
So, Brandon, your video actually cut out. You had just said you weren't quite sure how it was going to work, and then we didn't hear you anymore.
Oh.
So,
yeah, I was just saying that I wasn't sure how it's going to work at first, but then once you get outside the studio and they lead you out, then in the line they were pretty helpful at making sure that we got in the studio.
Well, that's good.
And
so,
the line, sorry.
Go ahead.
The line afterwards, actually, when we were waiting right next to there to get back in, Sarah from the Clue Crew came by and she recognized me from the games that I won, and so we talked with her, and then Jimmy stopped by for a second. I was just like, wow. So that was pretty cool.
Nice. So I just asked Lisa this question, and now I'll ask you as well. How different is it watching Jeopardy now that you've been a contestant and taped an episode? And
it's interesting. I was watching the week before, and I was just like, I was there the next taping day. Like, I've been in that studio. So you'd notice. I noticed a few more things. I feel like, I knew about like the video screen, how that's much farther away from the contestants. So I knew that they were looking at it from far away, and the screen in general with all the clues and everything, it's kind of smaller than it looks on TV. So just like knowing that, it was weird to see that on TV and how it turns on TV, especially like my episodes, seeing all that. And you just I felt like I have more sympathy for the contestants and everything too, just knowing everything that goes into it. You notice that more, I feel like.
Yeah, especially the people that you see frantically clicking. I know how they feel.
Yep. Though, to be honest, from what I know and what people have said here on panel over the past months and years, that if people are demonstratively clicking, it's because it's actually a good idea to do that, because if the if the producers see you signaling and they don't see a circuit being made because they have access to as you mentioned, to tell you that you're too soon or too late. And so they have access to see when everyone's attempting to buzz in. So if they see you demonstratively buzzing and they're not seeing a circuit being made on their end, they know there's something wrong. And if it's a good way of identifying quickly whether or not a buzzer system is working. Because longtime panel fans will remember the story of John Schultz's buzzer at the Tournament of Champions, the last one, where it actually came apart in his hand, and they had to stop tape. So.
Oh no.
Yeah, so that's something that happens from time to time. So it's always a good idea to. I'm in favor of people who demonstratively buzz, in spite of the Twitterverse that seems to not know the whole story and chooses to mock based on not the whole story. So.
Oh yeah, they talked a lot about me. I think my buzzer I was holding it higher. I saw it on the show. I didn't really notice it when I was playing, but when I watched on the show, my buzzer was a lot higher than the other people. So I think the mic picked it up more because I could hear it, and you can hear everyone's buzzer on stage, so it didn't seem weird. But watching it back, I'm like, oh wow, my buzzer's really loud. The clicking, you could hear it really well.
Funny. I remember that my palms were sweating slightly, and so that's why I kept the clicker down on the podium, and was just sort of bracing it there. It was clicking because I was afraid it would slip out of my hand.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good either.
That would be very bad.
So, were there any tape stoppages during that you remember from your episodes?
There weren't any big ones during mine. The Thursday game, I think it was, they had to stop for about 10 minutes because there was something wrong with the board and they had to turn them around and everything. But besides that, it was pretty smooth. There were just little things. Like my games, I don't think they had to stop at all, but maybe I'm forgetting something. But mostly it was just like, Alex read a clue wrong and so they re-record it really quick or something like that. But it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, I mean, Alex had to re-record a question. I think it was actually the first or second question on the first game, the Monday game. I was in the studio audience for that one, and I think he had to re-record one of the clues. For my games, they did stop for a few minutes because they had some sort of technical issue, and they just, I just sort of stood there and I just waited. But there weren't any challenges to the question. I don't think anybody in any of my games forgot to answer in the form of a question. I mean, I certainly, I remembered that.
Well, yeah, I mean, sometimes in the heat of the moment, people forget, so.
Oh, yeah, very natural.
And it's certainly, it's certainly disappointing when, because you feel for the contestant as well, because obviously they know the game, they've been through it, they've watched it a lot, and so I feel bad when somebody forgets.
Yeah.
So I'm actually through the various questions I have on my card. There's nothing really on the on the YouTube channel or the on the Twitter. So do you guys have any questions for either the other person on the panel or even for myself that or anything that you thought that I'd ask about tonight but didn't?
Well, actually, I had a question for Brandon. You filmed on March. You said, did you film on March 8th?
Yeah.
On March 7th, but I don't think you saw. I don't think you saw me. I don't think you were in the studio that day. I know that there were 2 people left over after March 7th. 2 people who hadn't gotten on, and I think they came in during your week.
Yeah, I think so. They talked about that. I think John He won on Friday. I think he was one of them, from what I
I
remember.
think you're right. And then
Yeah.
there was a woman who was, I don't think she won, but there was a woman as well. So
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I only remember John for some reason, but I think there are two, and they talked about how they're there before, and when Maggie gave her briefing, she said like, "You've heard this already, but make sure you hear it again." So.
oh,
Yeah.
I also had another question for you. A couple of my friends are now saying, "Hey, we want to bring you in as a ringer on trivia night, like the local pub or something like that." Have any of your friends suggested that?
Not
Trivia
really.
night?
I mean, we don't go to the pub too often. um, yeah, like here in Utah, there's not too much pub trivia. There are pubs somewhere, but just like in general, people have started saying like, "Oh, you're on Jeopardy. You must be really smart or something."
Oh yeah,
like,
oh yeah.
but I've kind of had that reputation for a while. I feel like I don't try to like talk about it really, but it just comes up that people know that I know like lots of trivia and things like that. In my AP government class in high school, they tried to stump me on random political facts and stuff. That was really fun because I really
Yeah,
like learning about politics. But yeah,
I used to be the go-to person for doing the crossword puzzle when I was in college. I mean, there were times I'd walk into the living room of my dorm and somebody would say, "Hey, Lisa, blah 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 blah." Okay, here's the answer. Yeah, that's the right clue. That's this. And then so one time somebody said, "I know who could get that right," and I'm thinking, we're all at one of the best liberal arts colleges in the country. You should know that. One of those trivia things, and, you know.
So,
Remember?
yeah. So, have you actually taken up any of your friends on that offer yet to be like, come out for trivia with us?
The interns at my office are claiming that they are trying to organize a trivia night. If they actually follow through on this, sure, I'll go with them. Otherwise, I have no idea. I do know that I went with a friend to a trivia night several years ago at a local. We did so well that after winning 2 weekends in a row, we were basically told, "Please don't come back for 6 months."
Oh.
Yeah. So I might. I've been getting recognized on the street, which is really interesting.
So, by the way, what part of Massachusetts are you in again?
I'm in East Hampton, which is about 2 hours west of Boston.
Okay,
I
so,
work in Amherst, which is the home of the the flagship university,
okay.
and I live very close. It's the Five College area.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, so so there's at least there's some stuff in the area, because I mean if you have because I would say if you're in that area and you have suggestions for a pub quiz that won't kick Lisa out after she wins 2 weeks in a row, then I would say please let her know, because
That would be fun.
mm-hmm.
That would be fun. I mean, I'd like to try it again. I mean, so much fun actually playing the game live.
Mm-hmm. I think,
Which,
Brendan,
you
you
know,
can agree with that too, right?
yeah, definitely.
it was
Yeah,
really enjoyable.
Yeah. I mean, I personally have fun when I get the opportunity to go play trivia somewhere. It's usually pretty fun. I usually have a good time. I know I was in Ottawa the last couple of weeks, and I played their trivia, the Ottawa Trivia League up there, and that's definitely one of my personal favorite games. It's a good mix of questions, style, question styles, and it's written really well. So I'm
Yeah.
That sounds like fun.
mhm. So, any other questions at this point?
I'm okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to thank you guys for joining me here tonight on #Jeopardy Live panel. I certainly enjoyed this interview. I hope you guys did as well. I'm not entirely certain when the next episode is going to be. I will figure that out over the next couple of days. Try to get in touch with a couple of this week's contestants, see when they're available, sort of deal, and then we'll figure out from there when we'll tape. So for everyone here at thejeopardyfan.com and hashtag Jeopardy Live panel, thank you to both Brandon and Lisa for joining me tonight. Also, thank you, Brandon, for contributing your thoughts in blog form for the site as well. That was a nice blast from the past to get that sort of thing. It's been a while since we've done that.
Yeah, it was really great to do that.
Mm-hmm. So I'll just get the credits up here. Thank you very much. And hopefully we'll be taping again soon. And have a great night.
You too.